Hey guys, we are back with another Pokemon Hardcore Nuzlocke, and in this video, I'll be attempting to complete a Hardcore Nuzlocke in Pokemon Black 2 using nothing but the Steel type and on only one attempt. Now, time to get this challenge started. We begin the journey by watching a very nice cutscene showcasing these very nice graphics before meeting up with Bianca to pick our very first Pokemon, Snivy. I decided to go with Snivy since it's a grass type, which will force our rival to choose Tepig, which is a fire type, and the added combo of fire and fighting will be very detrimental to the steel typing, so just a little bit of an extra challenge there when facing you. Now, after choosing Snivy, I immediately find and catch a Riolu that I named Nintendo and evolve it into a Lucario right before the gym fight. Now, Lucario doesn't get any fighting moves before this very first gym. All it has is access to counter, which I definitely use to my advantage during this gym fight, which is definitely going to be useful to the strategy. So once we get it evolved, we immediately fight Charon with a little confidence due to the steel typing resisting his gym type as well. Now I start with quick attack on his Pat Rat. My strategy going into this, as mentioned previously, was to just use quick attack for a little bit of damage. And as Workup was boosting up his Pokemon's attack stat, once it got high enough, I just go for the counters. I wound up beating the Pat Rat, and the Lillipup wasn't that much of an issue as well afterwards, just going down to a few quick attacks. And that was pretty easy in securing the first gym badge. Now, moving on to Verbank, I catch a Magnemite, which I named PlayStation, before challenging the second gym leader, Roxy, and her poison types. Again, I have a fair amount of confidence going into this due to the tight matchup, as I lead with Magnemite to cause some special damage to her physically bulky Pokemon. I get the paralysis off on coughing before finally taking it down with a Thunder Shock, as Roxy sends in her ace, Whirlipede. I go for the Thunder Wave before unleashing a barrage of Thunder Shocks, finally taking it down and earning my second gym badge. Now, I definitely had an advantage here since none of her moves could really affect the steel typing that I had, so it was just more of a grind of just kind of spamming the Thunder Shocks and hoping for paralysis when Whirlipede's going for Protect there. But nonetheless, defeated her and earned the second gym badge. Now, after the gym, I was heading to the Castilia sewers to find an Onyx, which I nicknamed Genesis, and box him right before taking on Berg and his bug types. Now, as with the last battle, I start with the Magnemite to kind of soak up any damage, since it has a good chance of resisting a lot of the moves Berg could really throw at it. Against Swadloon, and after a few sonic booms, I finally take it down after also paralyzing it, and Bird decides to send in his Dwebble. Now, again, his Pokemon can't really hurt my Magnemite, so I just paralyze his Dwebble, and I eventually start taking it down with a bunch of Magnet Bombs as it tries to boost its speed again using Rock Polish. But the added bonus here is that Bird is using up all of his Hyper Potions, so that wouldn't really, hopefully it won't really come into play when facing off against his last Pokemon, Levany. Now, next up is his Levany, and I get in a Thunder Wave right before being hit with a very strong Razor Leaf, which I wasn't expecting. And even though I resisted, it did take me down and force me to use a berry. So, not wanting to stay in on low health and in range of a critical hit, possibly taking out my Magnemite, I decided to swap into Lucario to finish Levany off. Now, after a few quick attacks and surviving a critical hit Razor Leaf, like right after the turn that I swapped Magnemite in, Lucario eventually took it down, securing me the third gym badge. A great bonus that Berg definitely ran out of Hyper Potions there. Otherwise, this battle would have gone on even longer. Decided to teach my Lucario Metal Sound just for the future in case I wanted it to become a special attacker. Now, before facing Elisa, I managed to evolve my Magnemite into Magneton, which I unfortunately didn't show. And I lead with Lucario since he now knows Bone Rush. And she leads with Emolga and uses Volt Switch to swap into her Zebstrika as I go for Strength. Now, I was really gambling on if Zebstrika had Flame Charge or not, or if I could outspeed here, as Zebstrika goes for the pursuit as I take it down using Bone Rush. She sends in her Flaffy and immediately paralyzes Lucario before Volt Switching into Emolga there. Now, Emolga goes for the Volt Switch as well, taking Lucario down low as I get a lucky critical hit on Flaffy as it gets swapped in with Strength. I swapped in Magneton eventually against her Emolga because I figured Emolga probably didn't have anything to really hurt Magneton with, and Lucario was at low health. And at this point, I just decided to go for the Metal Sounds to kind of lower Emolga's special defense stats, and just kind of hoping that it doesn't have Volt Absorb or something to kind of soak up the Thunder Shocks. So luckily it doesn't, and I was able to take it down, earning the 4th gym badge. Now, up next is the serious challenge for my team in Clay. Clay sends in his Croc Rock as I go for Lucario for the type matchup. Even with the Intimidate, Lucario is doing some pretty decent damage as his speed gets lowered due to Bulldoze. I take it down very luckily as it went for Torment for some reason. Next up, he sends in Sandslash as I swap in my Magneton to do as much damage as possible for Lucario to come in and try to get that revenge. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out that way as Sandslash goes for the Fury Cutter, as I kind of contemplate what I should be doing here because Magneton's looking like it might need to be a necessary sacrifice. And it's probably going to be a rule change in the future, but using Pokemon that eventually evolve into the type that I'm using as Magneton goes down there with one single Bulldoze. So in this fight, yeah, I definitely didn't use Onyx at all, which I don't think it would have helped, but in the future, just going to use that same typing as Sandslash takes down Lucario and ending the run.